What's up, my friend? Abby here, and welcome back to Writer's Life Wednesdays, where we come together to help you make your story matter and make your author dreams come true. Today we are doing something special. It's not your average episode of Writer's Life Wednesdays. I'm so excited! I'm giving you a behind-the-scenes look at my audiobook making of process. That sounded weird. A couple weeks ago was my book birthday for my debut novel, 100 Days of Sunlight. We did a cool live stream, had a birthday party, and I made a big announcement in that birthday party, which was that I'm making an audiobook version of 100 Days of Sunlight. So I'm actually doing that all myself. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm making this audiobook from scratch with my own voice and my own book and my own home studio. So it's gonna be a pretty interesting process, and I wanted to show you behind the scenes what that process looks like. So today I'm going to show you how I get my book ready to record and a little sneak peek at the recording process and what that looks like as well. Plus some tips if you are thinking about doing this for your own book. So roll that intro and let's get started.
Why does your story matter? Good question. What if I told you that there's a science behind every great story? I don't just teach you how to write. I teach you how to change the world with your story and make your author dreams come true.
Okay, so the first step of this process is marking up. So if you're at all familiar with language in the narrator audiobook world, you know that marking up is when you take a document that is the book, which would be, I guess, called the script, and annotating it. So highlighting certain parts of it, annotating certain parts of it, underlining things, circling things, making notes to yourself so that when you sit down to record this book, you can get it right the first time as best as you possibly can. So for a lot of authors like myself, you probably know your book inside and out. Like you could read it with your eyes closed, right? I know I could with 100 Days of Sunlight because I've proofread it so many times. Even so, it is crucial to make these notes to yourself because even you as the author, you're not going to be able to foresee every single time that a character speaks, who's speaking right away, if the dialogue tag happens later on in the paragraph or the sentence, and what tone of voice the character is using when they are speaking, right? So I was going to show you mine in this copy of the book, okay? You can see my highlights and all my annotations. I went through this whole book and annotated the whole thing, getting ready to read it for the audiobook, and then I realized I could not hold the book in a place. I couldn't figure out where the heck do I hold it that it's not in the microphone, and then you have page flipping noises. I should have known this stuff, but I didn't know this stuff, okay? I only recently learned this the hard way. It is virtually impossible to noiselessly flip a page, especially when you are right in front of a microphone that is picking up every single noise. So that's when I realized, okay, I cannot use this copy that I annotated. Too bad, Abby. Gotta learn some things the hard way. And I relented to doing a digital version because it is so much easier to hold my phone in my sound booth and just noiselessly scroll through it continuously without having to flip pages or stop when I don't need to. So that being said, let's jump into my laptop and I will show you what my annotated copy of 100 Days of Sunlight looks like. So I'm using a PDF markup app that's called Wondershare PDF Element Pro. I wanted a program that was really simple because all I want to do is just highlight things and underline things and sometimes make very basic text notes to myself. So this program is perfect for that. And basically what I do is I go through and highlight each speaker's lines. So each character will have a color code. You know how much I love color codes. Color codes just make me happy. I love color coding things. And so every character will be assigned a particular color, and then I will go and highlight all of their lines through the manuscript in that color so that I know when I'm reading what voice I'm going to put on. Because the thing is, you're really not just reading your book, you're actually performing your book. Next thing we're gonna do is head on out to my studio, and I'm gonna give you a little tour and show you what the recording process looks like. Let's go. Okay, so it's kind of a mess in here because I keep getting stuff and I'm running out of room. But I would say that this space is super functional for how small it is. Like, there's the Kate and Abbie show backdrop. If you watch my podcast that I do with my sister, you recognize that and sign in that black background. That's where we shoot the podcast. And this is my piano that I record music on occasionally. There's some guitars I don't know how to play. That is my beast of a computer setup, which I don't know why it's not loading. Windows likes to update and then like have a black screen forever, so let's hope that fixes itself. That is my sound booth. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. And that is my beautiful drum set. Okay, so we're gonna go into the sound booth in a minute, and I'm gonna show you how I set everything up. But first, I wanna give a little bit of an explanation as to why I decided to even record my own audiobook in the first place, right? Because most authors probably don't want to do that. It's challenging is what I'm trying to say, but I really like challenges. I like trying new things. So this audiobook has definitely been giving me the opportunity to do that. Before I decided to do this and before I announced it to the world, I was like, I better make sure that I actually am gonna like doing this. So I came out here to my studio and I recorded just a sample of me reading the first chapter. And after recording that first chapter, I was listening back to it and I'm like, yeah, I can totally do this. I can totally do this, and what's more, I actually am really enjoying it. I think that's a big element of it. If you are reading a book or your own book and you're like, I'm really not enjoying this is not fun, I'm forcing myself to do it, then you're probably not the best person to read your audiobook. However, I would argue that the author is really one of the best people to read it if you can and if you enjoy it, because somebody else reading my book, they're not going to read it the same way I would, okay? That's just a given. I'm not saying they would read it not as good or that they wouldn't be able to interpret it how I want it to be performed. Because they might, but it won't ever be exactly the way I would do it. So that was the thing that I had to kind of deal with. And I was like, would I rather just do it myself? Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I mean, there wasn't really much that went into the decision. That was basically it. I was like, who would I like to do it? Who would do the best job? Me. I know that sounds so pretentious, but I'm not trying to be pretentious. You don't have to try, Abbie. It just comes natural. I know. But the thing is this. I love this book like my own child, and I really, really, really want all the say, no pun intended, in how the audiobook is given to your ears. Period, exclamation mark. Now there is more than just the element of creativity. There is the technical side of things, and that's what we're gonna discuss right now. But first, let me show you my sound booth and how cool it is. So there's no real way to like get inside except to crawl underneath, which is fine because I'm pretty flexible. So I have this LED light here that provides just enough light for me to see what I'm doing and where I'm standing. And here is my microphone. So I have that set up on a tripod. This is an acoustic tile behind it. That was already there, and I have acoustic tiles up here in the ceiling. So the whole ceiling, which is underneath this shelf, is all padded with insulation. So it's already like very muffled in here. So once I put up the acoustic blankets, it was like super muffled. And for my official recording, I'm using the Rode stage mic. I'm not sure what kind this is, but it is a Rode microphone with a pop filter And yeah, that's my setup. Okay, let's climb out of here. Okay, so that was the sound booth, and now we're going to look at what my setup on the computer looks like. So I use the software Pro Tools. I've used that for a long time for mixing and mastering and recording my music. So I'm familiar with recording software. I'm familiar with this monstrosity of a computer and audio interface and rigging up microphones and all of that. So you'll definitely have an advantage on recording your audiobook if you're thinking of doing that, if you familiarize yourself a little bit with recording equipment, even if it's just one mic and your computer and some kind of recording software. So yeah, long story short, I use Pro Tools. I'm going to open that now and set it up so that we're all ready to record. Okay, so as you can see, I already have a session in here that I've been working on here and there. And I like, once I have a session going, I like to kind of just stick with that session so that I don't ever get confused about which session I'm recording in. So I'm gonna set this up to record now, and then I'm gonna jump back into the sound booth and grab my script here on my phone and record a piece of this book. And then I'll come back out and edit it, and we'll talk about like technical difficulties and all of those annoying technical things that you have to pay attention to when you are recording an audiobook. Let's go.
Stranger's way of loving someone, and it feels like it's all over before it has begun.
So in preparation to do this audiobook, I read the book Storyteller by Laura Lee King, and I highly recommend it for anybody who's interested in narration, becoming an audiobook narrator, or narrating your own audiobook. I would say that it was less applicable for narrating your own audiobook because it really went more into like going to studios and narrating someone else's book and interpreting how their book should be performed. So all of that, you kind of like have a head start on all of that if you're the author, because you already know like how the characters should sound. Most likely you can already hear them talking in your head and they like already have voices. At least that's how it is for me. So while I'm recording 100 Days of Sunlight, I'm like, I already know how these characters are going to sound. I already know exactly the kind of emotions that each line should have. So you kind of have like, you have an advantage there as the author. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, okay? I'm not an expert at this, of course. This is my first audiobook that I've narrated. However, I have read aloud a lot, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of words I have read out loud, and I really enjoy doing that and bringing the emotion into it and bringing the performance into it. I find it almost like therapeutic because you're totally in the moment when you're reading and you're like really getting into the character's emotions, as long as you don't get too self-critical and perfectionistic, which is difficult for me because I'm kind of a perfectionist, but I try to remind myself, Abby, okay, chill. You can re-record this if you want. And that's another advantage of being in your own home studio like I am, because not only are a lot of studios closed right now, but when you're in somebody else's studio, you have to be on their time. So their time is money. You have to be really on top of your game and not waste their time. But if you have your own equipment and your own studio, then you're on your own time and you can make as many mistakes as you want. Okay, I've rambled enough. Let's listen to what I've got here, and I'm gonna have you just stand back a little bit. Not for any particular reason. Nothing's going to explode, but it might.
I feel around in the blankets, looking for my phone. Looking is a funny word to use when you're blind. I'm still getting used to the concept of feeling for things. You have to pat gently and carefully, not slide or sweep your hand. You have to pat
Plosives alert.
You knock things over when you do that. You accidentally throw your phone off the bed when you do that. You accidentally throw your phone off your bed when you do that.
The bed. So So I said the bed instead of your bed. So that's one of those technical things. You have to either start at the beginning of the sentence or the beginning of the paragraph, and be careful when you do because you can't change the tone at all. So if I started the sentence be like, you throw your phone off the bed when you do that, and then I was like, oh, I should have said your bed. I can't be like your bed when you do that because that's gonna be more difficult to edit and probably have some kind of little cut noise. Yuck. But I also can't be like, you throw your phone off the bed when you do that. Not only is that really bad reading, but it sounds different than the rest of it, so it doesn't smoothly flow in, and it sounds like you had to do a different take. So I would just cut that back and then put this in here. And if you noticed, I also cut out a little lip noise. That's one of the other things that you have to kind of train yourself to do as you're reading, is not close your mouth, which feels so weird because just like normally when you're speaking, you finish speaking and you close your mouth, right? But then you have that sound of you opening your mouth is surprisingly loud when you are like right next to the microphone. That can't happen.
What time is it? I ask, so soft I'm surprised it picks up my voice at all. Siri replies a moment later. It is 7:23 a.m. Good morning.
Like my Siri voice.
My breath rushes back out, shaken and ragged.
So I think I like where I said, I still can't decide which is worse.
I still can't decide which is worse. The dream of the crash, where I can...
And because I did both sentences completely, I should be able to melt these two together.
I still can't decide which is worse. The dream of the crash, where I can see everything in haunting detail.
Seamless.
Or the waking hours, when all I can see is darkness.
Nah, let's get to some dialogue.
Good morning, Tessa, Grandma says when I enter the kitchen. She's smiling. I can tell by the sound of her voice.
I don't know what happened here.
Grandpa greets me with a cheery good morning, too. I hear coffee being poured.
So that was like really, See that spike? It's like, oh my God.
I hear coffee.
Yeah, so I redid it. I'm like, I hear coffee. Wait a minute. That's like assaulting.
The cheery good morning, too. I hear coffee being poured into...
Much better. One of the other things that's really crazy is breathing. Like, you wouldn't think that anybody can hear you breathe, but the microphone can hear you breathe. Only if you're breathing from your throat or your chest. So as a singer, I've learned this and doing yoga and like all these things that you would think are unrelated to recording an audiobook, but they're actually very helpful when it comes time to do something like this. And breathing from your chest, like, you can hear that. Breathing from your diaphragm, which is how I've learned to breathe as a singer, is more like, can't hear that. That's one of those things that you have to train yourself to do when you're reading out loud, when you're reading an audiobook to a microphone. It's all about the details. Let's skip to a piece of Weston. I may or may not keep this. So I had originally thought of doing like dual narration and I just do Tessa and somebody else does Weston, but I really love Weston's chapters and I want to read them myself. So I've been developing their voices to be unique from each other, and it's not just about vocal tone, it's not just about Tessa's voice being higher and being more up here and Weston's voice being more down here. It's more about like attitude, and that's something that Laura Lee King talked about in her book, and I thought that was really interesting because for a lot of narrators who are trying to do dialogue from the opposite sex, you tend to like overdo the tone and think that you have to go like really low tone for a guy's voice and really high tone for a girl's voice, and you really don't have to do any of that. It's more about the attitude that you put into the expression of that character's voice. So that is one of the things that really gave me the confidence to go for Weston's voice, and I'm still developing it. But I'm pretty confident at this point that I can pull it off and that it will be an enjoyable listening experience. Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Just a little, I say with a laugh. Wrong gender, and not organized. Minimum typing skills and less texting counts. Other than that, I'm perfect. Rachel smiles. She appreciates my irony. Or maybe she smiles because she's secretly in love with me. I'm guessing it's a bit of both. Thanks for this, I say, holding up the index card. I won't tell my dad if you don't. She rolls her eyes and goes back to work.
Okay, and then I'm gonna have a little bit of a variation of his voice for when he's younger in the flashbacks.
Get back to Mom and Dad, I ordered, just because I was the oldest and could say things like that. I pointed in the direction of the synagogue, but Henry didn't move. No, he said. I want to go skateboarding with you guys. I groaned. Fine, but you better do everything I say, or I'm sending you back. He nodded eagerly. That was actually really good, I like that. Fine, but you better do everything I say, or I'm sending you back. I somehow developed the ability to make it sound like there was a gloomy, dark orphanage from where Henry had originally come, and I could send him back whenever I felt like it.
Still one of my favorite lines. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and I could edit for hours and hours, and I'm going to record more, I'm going to edit more, and I'm going to keep you guys updated on the release of the audiobook. Of course, it still has a lot of work, a lot to do to get this audiobook ready, but yeah, you're here for the whole process. You are along for the ride, and that's why I like making these videos and just showing you like behind the scenes look at what I'm doing in my process, because it's not only fun, but I also want you guys to be a part of this process. I want you to be a part of this journey. I want you to later get the audiobook and listen to it and be like, I remember watching her edit that part. And I want you to maybe have a little bit more confidence when thinking about the possibility of becoming an audiobook narrator or narrating your own audiobook. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes sneak peek of my audiobook, 100 Days of Sunlight audiobook. I don't have the book cover to hold up anymore. Let's just stick it right there. 100 Days of Sunlight coming to Audible. I'll be announcing the release date soon, hopefully, and until then I will keep you updated and I will keep recording this book. Okay? Smash that like button if you liked this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I post writing videos and publishing videos and sometimes random behind the scenes vlogs of my writing and publishing process every single Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Until next week, my friend, I will be here in the studio recording my audiobook. Rock on. Here's the thing that happens. It's like I get into one, playlists within your tracks. I sound so incoherent. It's unbelievable. And the most annoying thing is that your swivel chair always gets stuck on your microphone cables.